Bala du Wiradjuri Gibia Jira Madalinya Badu Wiradjuri. I am a Wiradjuri man, and I come here today on behalf of my people to pay Injamara, respect to the Gumach people, and Injamara to our Jinimaldana, our leader, Gallara Yunupingu. Thank you very much for having me here today. We're here to talk about Makarrata, Gobalanya in my language, which means peace, which means coming together after a struggle. We heard so eloquently from Gallara yesterday talking about the need to bring comfort and peace to our people. That all of our ancestors, black and white, sometimes in the same family, are buried in this land, part of this soil, and to bring peace to their bones and to bring peace to us here today. That's what we're here to talk about, Makarrata, what it means, what it will mean for our country. And I want to introduce, first of all, Marcia Langton to speak about Makarrata and the referendum process. Marcia?
I acknowledge the leader of the Gumach clan, Gallara Yunupingu. Thank you for your leadership. I acknowledge your elders. I acknowledge the Gumach people. You heard yesterday Gallara give the Prime Minister sacred words. You saw the Gurta ceremony, and Gallara has also most generously given the word Makarrata to this process of finding peace in our nation. Makarrata was never an easy process. It was always difficult. And there are many stories about the tragedies, but also the peace settlements that were made. There are, as Stan pointed out, versions of this ceremony around the country. I saw one in Central Australia many years ago. I've seen one at Makarrata, and there are variations on it. So let us not be naive about how difficult this process will be. This is a difficult process, as we all know. There's no silver bullet. And just as leaders in the past brought about peace through Makarrata, we have the task now of finding a settlement, settling our differences. Gallara also said yesterday that he welcomes us all here and he will show respect to all of us. And that is the magic of Garma. This is a peaceful place. This is a place where respect is shown to all and where we can work together to find solutions. Now, a solution is entirely possible, but it will take time. As Megan pointed out last night, we're 10 years into this process. This was first raised by Gallara at the University of Melbourne in a wonderful speech that he gave at the law school. And in that speech, he told stories about what had happened here. Many people naively think that this is an untouched area. Not at all. There were terrible massacres here. The Cold Storage Pastoral Company and other vigilante groups went through these areas and killed many people. But still today, the leaders of the clans here are searching always for a way to bring about the peace and to bring about a settlement. So, under Julia Gillard, an expert panel produced a tome of recommendations. Those recommendations have never been responded to adequately by the successive governments. Others have gone about exploring those recommendations. Then there have been several committees since then. I won't go through all of them. Megan told us that history last night. But the latest one is the Referendum Council. Now, after the expert panel was established, the Recognised campaign was established under the auspices of Reconciliation Australia. Now, the task of Recognise was not to come up with a question, not to engage in the constitutional machinations, but to ask Australians to be aware of the need for constitutional reform to recognise Indigenous Australians. And it achieved no more than that. Of course, all this time, in the 10 years since Galarrwuy first raised this issue, no question, other than the expert panel's question, has been put forward. It was a drafted question in the form of a bill, and it was quite long and complicated, but I'll leave it to you to read that. The Referendum Council was eventually appointed with a view to consulting with Indigenous Australians. Now, the expert panel consulted widely, but did not carry out the kinds of consultations with Indigenous Australia that were required. The Referendum Council did that, and did that very well. In the meantime, various other Aboriginal factions peeled off and created Warriors Against Recognise, Sovereignty Mob, War, various other factions, and took to Facebook, abusing those of us who were seriously considering this question, and I'm afraid caused a great deal of damage and poisoned the waterhole. Now, we must put those people aside because, as they've shown repeatedly, they're not helpful to us, and nor are all those politicians who say that this is not possible, that this is not acceptable. Those silly people who say, well, why don't they recognise me in the Constitution? I'm white and I should be recognised too. Well, hello, that's what the Constitution does. It recognises you. But there was a complete absence, a refusal to have Indigenous Australians, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people recognised in any way at all in the Constitution, and in fact removed from the Constitution from 1901 to 1967. After the referendum in 67, finally, with the overwhelming vote of Australians to allow us to be counted in the census and to allow the Parliament to make laws for Aboriginal people, finally we had a place in the Constitution. But there have been terrible problems with that, and I'm not going to go into the details. Megan's the expert on that. So there is the question of racial discrimination. Now, I think wisely, Indigenous leaders who met at Uluru and who stayed in the room and did not throw tantrums came to the conclusion that the law-making power has so many vulnerabilities around this question, and I believe, well, I listened very carefully to what you said yesterday, June. I think you gave a very good account of what the problems are, and I was very pleased to hear you say that. So I refer you to June Oscar's speech yesterday. June's the first woman Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Social Justice Commissioner of the Human Rights Commission in 30 years, in the 30 years of the existence of that post. So glad that you're there and that you're giving this leadership. We have to be very careful about this question of racial discrimination. And as Megan pointed out last night, there is no 100% guarantee that we will not be racially discriminated against by the parliaments of Australia. However, there are other options, and one has been put in the Uluru Statement to steer us through that minefield. And we need to give it careful consideration. But the Uluru Statement also gave us the proposal for a Makarrata Commission. As I said, this very important word has been given by Galarrwuy to this process. And I think we should thank Galarrwuy and the Yolngu speakers who have kindly given the nation this word. Thank you. I'm not going to explain Makarrata, I'll leave that to people who understand it better than me, but it is not an easy process. It doesn't involve people sitting down and being peace negotiators. There's much, much more to it than that. But we do have a responsibility to sit down together and start talking to each other. We have a national responsibility. We have a responsibility to all our First Nations peoples. We have a responsibility to all other Australians to sit down and talk to each other about these issues, and there is a way forward. Japari dreamt a dream about the canoes. She is telling us that there is a way. We should believe her. She's never wrong. So I'll leave it at that, but let's remember that we're on Gumatj land where all people are treated with respect under Galarrwuy's directions, and find a respectful way through this. Thank you.